by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls.
As far back as I could remember, I always knew everyone in our government was a gangster.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first radio episode of Thinking Logically. You're listening to the smooth, liquid candy voice of me, your host, Joseph Anthony Corsai. Outside of the studio, we have Mr. Gordy holding down Allegheny County. We'll get him in here in a minute. But first, what is this show? What is this show, Thinking Logically, all about? And is this a show for you? Well, do you believe the 2020 election was stolen and that Joe Biden is illegitimate? Do you believe the January 6th insurrection was more of a Fedsurrection? Hey, whatever happened to Ray Epps or the pipe bomber? Then this might be a show for you. Are you sickened by the catastrophe on our southern border and all the illegals pouring into our country? Are you tired of all the lies by both our government and the mainstream media that helps prop them up when they tell you not to believe your own eyes and ears? Then this might be a show for you. Are you, as a tax-paying United States citizen, unhappy with the overall direction this country is heading in? Well, then this might be a show for you. You see, 4 years ago, we were told decency is on the ballot. Decency supposedly won. But is that what you see from this administration, decency? I see chaos. I see everything from perversions on the White House lawn to drugs being found in the White House library. Not medical marijuana either. We're talking about, cocaine, powder, felony stuff here. Oh, and let's not forget the whole staffer having gay intercourse in the Senate hearing chamber thing, which I'll remind you went unpunished. But who's really in charge of this administration here? Is it Biden? Because I see a guy that has to take the short steps up to Air Force One because his handlers are afraid he'll fall. They even position a Secret Service agent at the bottom of the steps. And they have the nerve, his doctors included, they have the nerve to tell you he's quote unquote vigorous. Joe Biden is not vigorous. I've seen people that were about to be buried that look more vigorous than Joe Biden does. But here in 2024, this is nothing new. You see, love him or hate him, Donald Trump was right about one thing. The mainstream media really is fake news. From their reporting on Ukraine to January 6th to COVID. Remember when it came from a pangolin and not a lab in China? That was fun. All the way back to Russiagate. Also, remember Russiagate? Back when it was okay to accuse the other side of cheating in an election without the worry of being persecuted, prosecuted. It's time to wake up and think logically about what's going on in this country. That's where we come in. We will help you make sense of this madness. Things are going to continue to get crazier and crazier until they can no longer be ignored in everyday conversation. So, welcome to year 4 of the 2020 election. We're in for some fun. Gordo, are you still there? Would you like to share your manifesto next?
Is this thing on? It is an absolute honor to have this show on WBVP Radio, Beaver County Radio, all today. After listening to this station for so long, I remember being in my grandparents' kitchen in downtown Beaver Falls as they listened to Paul Harvey, and of course, before we had cell phones, listening to the Brighton Hot Dog Shop wrap-up show, as it was called then, on Friday nights in high school to find out who came out victorious on the gridiron. But now, we're in 2024, and after 99 podcast episodes with listeners around the globe, it is super special to have our 100th episode on terrestrial radio. So let's get this party started by taking a blowtorch to the Biden administration before they lead us into World War III. Joe.
All right, let's get into some topics. The first one, we'll do ESPN and Sage Steele. So this is on X. Former ESPN host Sage Steele says her 2021 Biden interview was entirely scripted by network executives. This is a quote from her. I was told, you will say every word that we write out. You will not deviate from the script to the word, every single question. She says everything was scripted. Mark, what do stories like this, because they keep on coming out, what does this say about this POTUS and this administration?
Well, let's talk about Sage Steele real quick. she was ringside at the last MMA fight, your UFC fight, I believe, and she was shown dapping up President Trump there as he made his way down to the ring. But what's to say about this administration? I mean, this whole thing is scripted. I mean, we are living in one big script, Joe. We saw years ago, during the early days of this administration, he was actually on a set of the Oval Office, I think it was, and so everything has been this, acted out and scripted. So this should come as no surprise to anyone who's been following the Biden administration closely here for the last 3+ years.
For those of you that have been living under a rock and don't pay attention to when Joe Biden makes a speech or signs a new executive order, he literally, when he answers questions from reporters, it's on a card and it'll tell the reporter's name, where they're from, and their question. How is that? When you think of America, you don't think of America. You think of like Soviet Russia and stuff like that. That doesn't sound like America to me, but that's the country we're living in right now, where the president needs to know the reporter's name and what the question is before he can answer. And it's not even because...
We've seen, Joe, at different press conferences, he's had names of reporters, the questions they're going to ask him, pictures of the reporters. We're seeing a president who is in total mental decline. I mean, he's probably way past decline. He has declined, and he probably has dementia. And this is what the result is. Now, well, the first thing I thought of when I heard about this story come out with Sage Steele is, okay, now this makes sense as to why he didn't have an interview for the Super Bowl.
It's a good point. It's a very good point. She's saying it was structured. They went over it dozens of times. Many executives went over it. Editors. It was absolutely, according to her, scripted, and she was told, "Do not deviate." That's scary.
This is North Korea. This is state media. I mean, this is what this is, where you can't deviate from the script. Who doesn't? I mean, what country does this happen in?
Well, I mean, there probably are a lot of people that are for it. Like, we'll give you an example. Another former ESPN guy, Keith Olbermann, your boy. He tweeted out, "Of course it was scripted. If it hadn't have been, Sage Steele, the dumbest person I've worked with on sports or in news, couldn't have gotten through it." So Sage Steele apparently is the problem, not the saggy bag of oatmeal in the White House that can't complete a sentence.
And to think, I used to look up to Keith Olbermann at one point in time during the mid-'90s, during the Late Show era with him and Dan Patrick on SportsCenter. This guy has devolved into such a cesspool of human filth and garbage that it's just unbelievable.
But it makes a good follow on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it.
He's the gift that keeps on giving.
Okay, so what we have here is a serious problem for those tuning in. You have a president who has no control over anything. He can't complete he can't answer a question. So who's really in charge? And we have an election coming up in about 8 months. Who are you going to want to vote for? You don't even know who's really in charge of this administration. Whose bidding is this guy going to do? He is just a shield to get everything passed through because people think, oh, it's Biden. He has dementia, whatever. If it was Kamala Harris right now, she wouldn't be able to get away with stuff like this. But for some reason, because it's a sad old man, it's able to be just passed over. Just like with the
Trans Day of Visibility?
No. Oh, geez. Let's not get into that.
I was going to say he didn't know that he denied that he made that proclamation.
Of course he denied it. And I understand the proclamation goes back to 2009, but the White House didn't have to come out and make the proclamation. And it said, I hereby, Joe Biden, do this proclamation. Listen, there's no getting out of this. I know you didn't create Trans Day of Visibility. Obviously, a trans person did that in 2009, which if you've ever seen the trans person that made that up, they look like Danny DeVito's character in Batman. What was it? The Penguin? That's what that person looks like. Yeah, it makes Rachel Levine look handsome, to say the least. Just people that give me total jump scares when I see them. But this is the new normal in our country, and Easter, established holiday here in the country for a long, long time. Trans Day of Visibility. He did this is Catholic Joe Biden. That's what makes it worse. It's Catholic Joe Biden. He ran on his faith. It's all about his faith. And he chose to bring attention to Trans Day of Visibility on Easter Sunday.
Well, speaking of Catholicism, the Cardinal of Washington, D.C., Wilton Gregory, who is a close ally of Pope Francis, kind of laid into Biden a little bit, called him a cafeteria Catholic. He said he picks and chooses what parts of his faith that he wants to acknowledge and doesn't want to make hard decisions when it comes to some of the, more difficult aspects of Catholicism. And, instead of defending the faith, he goes the other way. But that is kind of secondary to what we saw with this proclamation. He probably didn't even know that they put this out on his behalf, Joe. I mean, it's like, what's going on? I mean, are they putting this out without him knowing, or
they didn't tell him?
A ghostwriter.
They probably didn't tell him, and so they didn't expect the reporter to ask him that. Exactly. Do you remember 2 years ago when he had to run away from the Easter Bunny? That was because they were asking him a question, and next thing you know, the Easter Bunny shows up behind him and does this scare thing, and next thing you know, they get him out of there. You'll notice Jill Biden or someone is right next to him at all times. They do not let him wander too far away. He's like a child in JCPenney's.
Or as you called it, the Easter Bunny, he actually referred to it as the Oyster Bunny. Heard that quote.
Oyster Bunny. That's hilarious. Pearls for Easter. Not in this economy. All right, but we're gonna slowly move to a break here. But when we do come back, we're gonna talk about Pete Buttigieg and his love for not his husband Chasten, but electric cars. Also, why this administration hates, and I say that with a capital H, hates fossil fuels and won't refill the strategic petroleum reserves, and more. This has been Thinking Logically. We'll be back in a second. You know, when Joe Biden shuffles in front of the cameras to answer scripted questions during the day, he lies like Don King. But what you don't know is, when he goes to sleep at night, he lies like an Egyptian king because he uses MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets. Grown only in a region between the Sahara Desert, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Nile River, its long staple cotton makes it ultra soft and breathable. Use the promo code LOGIC to maximize your savings on this amazing product. Cash for your house. PGHbuyers.com. If you have an unwanted house but don't want the hassle of selling, visit PGHbuyers.com to see if PGHbuyers.com can help. No inspections and a fair cash offer. Visit PGHbuyers.com to sell that unwanted property for a fair price today. It's Joe Corsi here from Thinking Logically to tell you about Beaver County's #1 realtor, Mark Galla with RE/MAX Select Realty. With over 10 years experience, Mark knows all the ins and outs of the real estate business, so whether you're looking to rent, buy, sell, or swap your house, you can rely on Mark to take the hassle out. Mark Galla of RE/MAX Select Realty, going above and beyond. It's Joe again from Thinking Logically, here to tell you about one of my favorite clothing items, the MyPillow hoodie. Two things I love the most about this hoodie are how it fits and how it feels. This hoodie is extremely roomy, and its terry cloth material makes it lighter than any other hoodie I own. Use promo code LOGIC to maximize your savings. The MyPillow hoodie. Get yours today.
The views and opinions expressed on WBVP and WMBA are those of the participants and host. They are not necessarily the viewpoint of WBVP and WMBA, its staff, management, and advertisers. Thank you for listening to WBVP and WMBA.
Welcome back to Thinking Logically. That's right. These are my opinions, and you will like them. Just got back. We were talking about the rotting corpse in the White House earlier with Joe Biden and our, I guess you could call, don't call the FBI on this one, the manifesto me and Mark gave. Now we're going to get into Pete Buttigieg and why he hates electric cars. So on Fox News, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg gave an awful analogy in a rather condescending tone because some Americans won't buy overpriced electric vehicles. We have a clip coming in 1 second. Play clip 1 when you get a chance.
Let's be clear that the automotive sector is moving toward EVs, and we can't pretend otherwise. Sometimes when these debates happen, I feel like it's the early 2000s, and I'm talking to some people who think that we can just have landline phones forever.
Okay, let's break this down a little bit. So, Mayor Pete, for starters, cell phones made communication way easier. If you were away from home, traveling, whatever. Let me ask you a question. Do electric vehicles make traveling easier right now? Can you get in an electric vehicle and take road trips without it being inconvenient? No. That's why the government has to offer incentives for you to buy electric vehicles. The government didn't have to come out and make an incentive for you to go out and buy an iPhone ever. You bought one because you wanted it. Also, let's not forget this administration's end game for the future. It's no gas vehicles, ever, done, goodbye. They want to phase them out completely by a certain date. I think it's 2030, 2031, I don't know. Their words, not mine. No one forced you to give up your landline for a cell phone. You did that willingly. So what is the obsession with making people want to switch to electric vehicles? Nobody asked for this. I didn't ask for this. So why are they forcing it on us? I mean, you didn't have to drive to Dunkin' Donuts to charge your phone. I'm not doing it for my car. This is something the government should not be involved in at all. Remember this when they talk about tyranny. Mark, we've covered electric vehicles for a long time on this podcast before it was a radio show and how it's a bad idea and why. And I can make every example from the fact that whenever there's a giant pileup on a 7-lane highway, how are you going to tow all the cars out of there? You can't bring a giant charger there to get them all out. People could freeze.
Well, I mean, I look at this from, an electoral standpoint as we, head into this election in November. I mean, this is crippling the auto industry. And if Donald Trump loses Michigan, I will be absolutely stunned. He's going to get the support of the auto workers because electric vehicle production is destroying the auto workers union. It's destroying jobs in Michigan. And like you said, no one wants this. The private sector needs to lead the way, not government. No, this never been successful in anywhere where the government can dictate what you should or shouldn't be doing. The private sector will eventually catch up. It might not be, in the next couple of years, but it might be 10 years from now. We don't know. But it's certainly not right now where you're shoving this down our throats. But, hey, I'll be the first to admit, I use the Green New Deal tax credit on my solar panels on my roof. So it does, if they're going to give you 30% tax rebate on electric vehicles, people should take advantage of it. But like you said, the infrastructure just isn't there to charge your car. You can't take a trip from Pittsburgh to Ocean City, Maryland without having to stop and recharge your vehicle for at least, 45 minutes to an hour. I don't know. I don't own an electric vehicle, so I don't really know how long it takes to charge up a Tesla. But I did see a Cybertruck driving down I-79 yesterday, which I thought that was interesting.
Really?
But, we'll see where this goes. I think that the auto workers are going to get behind Donald Trump, and he's going to win Michigan.
So you mentioned, and I agree with you on the Michigan part, he will win Michigan, but you brought up how the infrastructure isn't there. And I have to ask for the audience, how is it not there? Because, and we talked about this, Mark, the Washington Post, this is an article from the Washington Post, just not that long ago, March 29th of 2024. Joe Biden's $7.5 billion investment in electric vehicle charging stations has only produced, wait for it, 7 stations in 2 years. Mark, that's over $1 billion a station, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I got to crunch them numbers again real quick. But what's the point of this? Where did that money go? Is this another slush fund like Ukraine, which we'll get into later? what is this? Where is the money going? Does anyone care? We're supposed to have, this was like their thing, the Green New Deal. He got in office on January 20th, 2021 and started slashing regulations on, or not regulations, executive orders on oil. We were energy independent. We no longer are now. Now they want to talk EVs when we're not ready for EVs for another decade, and they can't even build a double digits in charging stations. This is insanity is what this is.
Joe, let's talk about lithium for a second. Lithium batteries are in electric vehicles, correct?
Correct.
Who is the world's third largest producer of lithium, Joe? China.
China.
So what happens when we have a lithium shortage? They are projected to have a lithium shortage by 2025. That's next year. And it's according to this article from CNBC, the world produced 540,000 metric tons of lithium in 2021. And by 2030, the World Economic Forum projects that global demand will reach over 3 million metric tons of lithium. I mean,
well, according to Joe
this isn't going
Biden,
to work out.
Well, according to Joe Biden, it will, because he has a great relationship with President Xi, and he's traveled with him to the Tibetan Mountains numerous times. He's told the story, which never happened, which never happened to the Tibetan Mountains. Maybe he'll call up Xi and get us a good deal. What do you think, Mark? On some lithium.
I don't know. This just makes me wonder. You know, we see how cozy they are with the Chinese Communist Party, and this is like the writing on the wall.
But no, people forget it is. It's both a foreign issue and a domestic issue, because China has a lot of lithium, and people don't forget they're pushing this Green New Deal and electric vehicle thing way harder than you think or you realize. Look no further than what this administration is doing with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and that's where we're going to head next. So this is from sorry. This is from X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Biden has drained the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to its lowest level in 40 years. Now, the Biden administration is canceling their plans to refill it because oil was, quote, way too expensive. You brought up China, Mark. Do you remember when we were taking this stuff from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and selling it to China? Where was that money going?
I also remember when we were taking oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and saturating the oil market here in the United States to combat the Putin price hike. We are now down to, I think I saw Joey Manorino on X say we are down to a 17-day supply of oil in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. We are one World War I disaster away from being completely crippled as a nation from an oil standpoint.
Yeah, and that's the point that needs to be hammered home. God forbid, and we'll get into the foreign policy stuff later, a war ever breaks out, and that Strategic Petroleum Reserve isn't not necessarily filled, but sitting at 17%. I think it holds around 300 and some million barrels, and it's down about half since Trump took office, or since Trump left office. You forget, people, reminder for our audience, Donald Trump refilled the petroleum reserves during COVID when oil was cheap. And whatever, timing, it worked out for him. Biden drained them and promised to refill them. And what's happened is he's selling them to China back, a year ago, was selling them to China at a discounted rate, and now he has to buy them back at a more expensive rate because I think oil is $100 a barrel again. And when you ask our White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, she says, I can't answer that question. You have to go to the Department of Energy, I believe she said, to go see during the press briefing. It's ridiculous. You can't get an answer.
She did say that. So I saw this the other day, Joe, when I was reading about this. The government was supposed to buy back oil to restock the Strategic Petroleum Reserve at $79 a barrel. Well, the price they were getting was $81 a barrel. And they needed to buy something like 2 million or so barrels of oil, what they were looking at. And they said that they didn't want to buy it at $81 a barrel because they wanted to keep be in the best interest of the taxpayer. Joe, didn't we just send $100 billion to Ukraine?
Yeah. They think you have a short
You're
memory.
going to nickel and dime the Strategic Petroleum Reserve over a couple $1 million after you just sent $100 billion to Ukraine? Give me a break. Insane. We're being gaslit on a daily basis, multiple times a day, actually.
It is what it is. But let's.
It is what it is. Let's talk about our neighboring state, Joe, Ohio.
Yes. So in Ohio, this will shock everyone. Another illegal alien was apparently accused. I don't know if he was arrested. Accused. Yes, he was arrested of numerous charges, included aggravated murder after being connected to a body found discarded in an alley. Okay, remember those of you that watched the State of the Union address. Remember when Joe Biden said during that address just a few weeks back, quote, "An innocent woman who was killed by an illegal." That's right. But how many thousands of people are being killed by legals? And he was talking about Lincoln, or as he called her, Lincoln Riley, the football coach. But he asked that question with his arms raised as if legal people, legal citizens of the United States are killing more people than illegals. Remember, this administration is taking people from the border and flying them into the heart of our country. That's probably why this is happening. Why is this not a bigger story? Mark.
Well, like the link you provided here from X, I mean, this guy was deported 7 times. I mean, this guy's will to come back into the United States was incredible. To be deported 7 times and keep coming back into the country undetected, I guess. Maybe he was detected and they let him through. Who knows? But again, as we've been saying on this podcast, for those of you just listening, just tuning in today for the first time, we've been saying this for literally probably the last year and a half, that this is the number one issue that we are facing as a nation. We have what, Joe? 13 to 14 million undocumented migrants in this country, potentially. They are all illegal aliens. If you're not here legally, then you are here illegally. Every state is a border state. This is literally going to destroy this country if it doesn't get under control soon. And the only way it's going to get under control soon is if Donald Trump gets elected president and he conducts a mass deportation of these illegals that are here in non-sanctuary states and cities, because you can't deport illegals that are in sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. But every state's a border state, Joe, and we haven't really seen a lot of this here in Western Pennsylvania, but it's only a matter of time when you have this many people entering the nation. It's just scary, and I think that this is going to be the number one issue that gets independents, moderates to vote for Donald Trump in November.
Okay, let's not forget, Mark, to call it even, because there's some people that think all these illegals are a good thing. For instance, the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, who said, I believe it was today, if not today, yesterday, that population boost may have helped with inflation in 2023. And I believe he's talking about illegals when he says the population boost. So according to very smart Jerome Powell, chairman of the Federal Reserve, illegal immigrants lower inflation and boost our GDP by the trillions. This is the chairman of the Federal Reserve saying this. Do you believe him? Sure. Letting in millions of people makes our GDP bigger. I'm sure it actually does. I'm being serious. But how does it help us, Americans, tax-paying citizens? Us. It doesn't. So ask yourself before we take our next commercial break. Do you believe this genius, Jerome Powell, when he tells you that illegal immigrants are actually great for this country? We'll be back, and when we do come back, we're going to talk about foreign policy. Apparently, Israel's killing world kitchen workers. I don't know what that's about. Iran has been struck by Israel. It's getting spicy. Stay tuned. This is Thinking Logically. It's Joe Corsi here from Thinking Logically to tell you about Beaver County's #1 realtor, Mark Galla with RE/MAX Select Realty. With over 10 years experience, Mark knows all the ins and outs of the real estate business, so whether you're looking to rent, buy, sell, or swap your house, you can rely on Mark to take the hassle out. Mark Galla of RE/MAX Select Realty, going above and beyond.
As your life evolves, so should your furniture. The new Flex modular seating furniture by FlexSteel at AK Nahas changes with your lifestyle. Durable, stain resistant, sustainable, easily customized. Discover Flex. This President's Day, take an extra 15% off our low price on your FlexSteel purchase and save an additional 10% off your FlexSteel furniture purchase, along with free local delivery and 12 months special financing. Only at AK Nahas. You'll do okay with AK.
This is Andy Toole, men's basketball coach at Robert Morris University, here to talk about my friends at Falcone Moon Township Ford. I know what it takes to win a basketball game. It begins with practice and a team of players who want to win. The same is true of the team at Moon Township Ford. Professionals who will win you over. They'll find the best rate and terms on a car loan to help you get the best deal. Make a fast break and avoid the roadblocks that stop you from finding the car you want. Go where I go. Moon Township Ford.
Falcone's Moon Township Ford, where friends send friends.
You know, when Joe Biden shuffles in front of the cameras to answer scripted questions during the day, he lies like Don King. But what you don't know is, when he goes to sleep at night, he lies like an Egyptian king because he uses MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets. Grown only in a region between the Sahara Desert, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Nile River, its long staple cotton makes it ultra soft and breathable. Use the promo code LOGIC to maximize your savings on this amazing product.
The views and opinions expressed on WBVP and WMBA are those of the participants and host. They are not necessarily the viewpoint of WBVP and WMBA, its staff, management, and advertisers. Thank you for listening to WBVP and WMBA.
Welcome back to Thinking Logically here on 99.3 WBVP. Phone number, if you guys want to call in, we might be able to take a few callers at the end. 724-774-1888 or 724-843-1888. Again, 724-774-1. And then just think of what Christy did all day today. 888. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about the border, illegal aliens, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, how it's basically empty now, and Pete Buttigieg and his love for electric vehicles. Now we're going to get more foreign policy-esque here. We're going to dive into the Middle East. So for those of you who haven't been paying attention, Israel struck, I believe it was an embassy in Iran. Was it in Damascus? Which is weird for me because, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't embassies in other countries supposed to be off limits?
I believe they are, according to the Vienna Convention, I believe it's called.
Well, I mean, do we play by the rules? Huh. Here's my issue. We get mad when Hamas doesn't play by the rules or when other people don't play by the rules. So when an ally of ours or someone we're giving money to and weapons to doesn't play by the rules, shouldn't we have a say to say, hey, maybe don't kill people in embassies in other foreign, other sovereign countries? I highly doubt Iran, thinking like big picture, would strike at us for this. And I would find it highly questionable if something like that did happen. If we would blame Iran, if a terrorist attack would happen. Iran, I think, knows better. Why would they want to get the United States involved directly by attacking it? But now, what happens if Iran attacks Israel after this? Because it's a real possibility, and it's something that probably, I hope it doesn't, but it probably will happen. There's going to be escalation. We better not get involved. Matter of fact, like I said, until we get answers on, October 8th, October 6th, of how this was allowed to happen, this attack by Hamas across one of the most secure borders. You talk about our southern border. Israel's border is more secure and has more eyes on it and is smaller than our southern border. How did this happen? Remember, Hamas had people hang gliding in to attack. You don't just train for that overnight. And it's not like you could Israel intelligence wouldn't see that. You got to dive out of a plane and hang glide. You got to learn how to do that stuff. Anyway, we better not get involved. We're funding both sides, whether it's we're giving aid to one side and weapons to another. This sounds a little bit more like instigation by us. But someone got to bring in Israel. You can't be killing civilians. They're losing, I think, their narrative and their position as the good guys. Would I be wrong in saying that?
Did the United States even condemn this attack on the embassy inside Syria? I don't think they did they, Joe?
I didn't watch. We had a busy day today. I didn't watch much news today. It's possible they could have, but I've heard people inside Israel actually come out and not be for it before the United States.
Yeah. Listen, I couldn't wait to talk about Israel. They have lost all goodwill that they had, or all sympathy that they had that they were garnered after this attack on October 7th. That is completely out the window. Goodbye, gone. They are unquestionably committing genocide now in southern Gaza. We're going to talk about their assassination of World Central Kitchen aid workers in a second here. But Israel is so brazen. I mean, they have just gigantic balls to sit there and attack an embassy in Syria. What did they think is going to happen? I mean, this is completely violates norms and treaties that exist all over the world. They took out Iranian generals in this attack. They killed, I think it was 6 or 7 people. I just don't understand that we need to bring them in. I mean, they go unchecked in every single one of these things they're doing. Let's bomb an embassy. What are they going to do? Nothing. Let's starve the people of Gaza. What's going to happen to us? Nothing. Let's do, they are completely out of control. I think I sent you this. I said Netanyahu has completely lost the plot. There are Israelis I just read before we got on today that they are in panic mode. They are afraid that, and rightfully so, Iran is going to attack Israel with ballistic and long-range missiles inside of Israel. That maybe the Iron Dome isn't going to stop. And I believe I read that bomb shelters are open all over, and I believe that even in Tel Aviv was one of the places where bomb shelters are open all over the city. So Israel is just so brazen, Joe, and I really can't stand them anymore. I mean, they're supposed to be one of our closest allies in the world. And what are we doing to rein them in? Nothing. Insane.
It is, and I just want answers on what happened on that day in October, how Hamas, people that were literally using drainage pipes for missiles, supposedly, or for rockets, were able to thrust such a successful attack on the 50th anniversary of Yom Kippur. You figure they'd be a little bit like on their toes here. I mean, we would be if it was like on 9/11 and there was a threat of terrorism, don't you think? But that's neither here nor there.
This upsets me to no end. And, I mean, this is going to – Iran, rightfully so, should respond. I mean, think about if this happened to us. Think about if somebody bombed an American embassy in a different country, what our response would be.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
I mean, they are funding Hezbollah. We know. So they are hitting back in that way. But I think we're going to see a much larger response over the next 48 to 72 hours inside of Israel. And I wouldn't be surprised if this escalated. Joe, how did we get here? We had peace for 4 years. We had no conflicts really throughout the world for 4 years. And all of a sudden the world's on fire. And I don't know if we can hang on till November.
Well, that's what happens whenever in 2020 the 4 a.m. voter ferry shows up at 4 a.m. and with a bunch of ballots and steals 7 swing states where they shut down all the voting at the same time all at once. Wasn't weird at all. But we're not gonna argue the 2020 election right now. Let's focus on the kitchen workers, I guess. I don't even know what the World Central Kitchen was, but apparently Israel killed 7 World Central Kitchen workers. And from what I understand, this attack happened where a missile hit. People were frantic, going out to help other people. Another missile hit. Basically, it was 3 missiles within a couple minute span. And they're trying to say that the last 2 missiles were a mistake. Well, was the first missile a mistake too? Who did you kill? This goes back to like our country when we drone struck a family in Afghanistan in the last days of Afghanistan. This, if anyone else were doing this, if any other Middle Eastern country were doing this, if Russia was doing this, it'd be all over the news right now. And Russia bad. Ukraine bad. I'm not saying I'm for Russia. I'm not saying I'm for Iran. I'm not saying I'm for Hamas. But I just want to call it right down the middle and call it straight. Because remember, we're funding both sides.
Oh, yeah. So what happened was this World Central Kitchen, these aid workers, I think there were 7 or 8 of them, and they were in 3 different vehicles. They were in communication with the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF. So they were inside Gaza. And apparently the drone operator thought that there was a weapon inside of the car. Well, of course there should be a weapon inside of the car. You're in a war zone. It's proper to have some sort of weapon on you in case something were to happen, right? The roofs of their vehicles clearly, showed that they were aid workers from the World Central Kitchen. So the drone operator sends a missile down on the first car. Whoever survived that went into the second car. Another drone attacks the second car, and the same thing happens. They get the people out of that car, whoever survived, into the third car, and then a missile hits the third car, killing everyone. I could pretty much tell you why this happened. This wasn't a mistake. They didn't make a mistake here. What they're doing is they're sending a message to people saying, don't think about delivering aid to the Palestinians in Gaza. We're not going to have that. We want them to starve to death. This is a famine. It's insane. It's absolutely disgusting, and I can't believe that they would actually even do something like that. They're so brazen, Joe.
This is from Anthony Blinken earlier today around 3. This is why I love X, because I could go right on and see what's happened even like an hour or two ago. So Blinken called the Israeli killing of the 7 World Central Kitchen workers horrific, and Biden then after called for an immediate ceasefire. So I don't know. Maybe it just, for me with this guy, I just keep on thinking that he saw what happened in Michigan with the Muslim vote and a few other places in Minnesota, and that's the only reason why he's doing this. And I'm probably right, but where was this a few weeks or months ago? And a corresponding.
I'd love to hear those conversations, Joe, between Blinken or whoever's communicating with the Israelis. Like, hey, can you not kill aid workers next time?
In a corresponding move, I don't know if this had anything at all to do with it, Mark, but was it not long after? Or maybe it was before. Yeah, this was before. Russian warships officially entered the Red Sea. Now, that's a lot of shipping lanes in the Red Sea, and I believe it goes to the Suez Canal from there. So they were in the Black Sea, and I guess they were getting attacked by Ukraine and other things. Now they're in the Red Sea where there are NATO ships from NATO countries. This could get interesting. This could get spicy. This is definitely a situation to focus on because things can happen in the blink of an eye. The blink of an eye.
Yeah. Speaking of the Houthis, I just read yesterday, or was it earlier today, that the United States told the Houthis, hey, listen, if you stop the attacks on shipping vessels in the Red Sea, we'll remove you from our terror group list. That's a great negotiating tactic. Like they care.
Yeah, really. Also, this is also from Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. We'll cover this right before we move to a commercial break. According to Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, this is April 4th, 2024 on X at 1:30 p.m., Ukraine will become a member of NATO. That's not good because Ukraine's at war with Russia currently right now. And I'll remind our audience, Article 5 means an attack on Ukraine will also be considered an attack on the United States. And they want Ukraine to join NATO, all while they're already at war with Russia. These people want a war. They want escalation. I don't know why, but they do. This is Thinking Logically on WBVP. Cash for your house. PGHbuyers.com. If you have an unwanted house but don't want the hassle of selling, visit PGHbuyers.com to see if PGHbuyers.com can help. No inspections and a fair cash offer. Visit PGHbuyers.com to sell that unwanted property for a fair price today.
Beaver County Radio proudly welcomes Fry Transportation to their family. You're listening to 99.3 FM and 1230 WBVP, live from the all-new Fry Transportation Studios.
Tune in to Beaver County Radio every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. for the Sports Corner with Ralph Williams and Smokin' Jim Frazier. The Sports Corner talks about everything that is currently going on in the sports world. Ralph and Smokin' Jim will also have special guests every week, and they'll take your calls. The show will also be streamed live on the Beaver County Radio Facebook page and YouTube channel. So make plans every Tuesday at 4 p.m. to tune in to the Sports Corner, right here on Beaver County Radio.
Friendly Federal Credit Union, you've got a friend.
Whether it's Little League or the big leagues, it's time to get out and play ball. Friendly Federal Credit Union reminds you that every team looks forward to playing at home in front of a live crowd. Seeing loyal fans can help any player feel more comfortable. Just like a home game in baseball, Friendly Federal Credit Union always has friendly faces to help and cheer you on at the teller window. Now get out of that dugout and in front of your cheering section, the personal live tellers at Friendly Federal Credit Union. And don't forget, applications are now being accepted for the Carl D. Ross and Anthony S. Payne Memorial Scholarships. Follow Friendly Federal Credit Union on Facebook and Twitter. Member NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
Friendly Federal Credit Union, you got a friend.
The views and opinions expressed on WBVP and WMBA are those of the participants and host. They are not necessarily the viewpoint of WBVP and WMBA, its staff, management, and advertisers. Thank you for listening to WBVP and WMBA.
Welcome back. You're listening to Thinking Logically on 99.3 WBVP, and it's brought to you in part by our sponsors, Back to Barney's, Grossi & Associates, Mitchell's Jewelers, and Mark Gulla from Remax Select Realty. Up next, we're going to go into a thing in the Twitterverse here with Kamala Harris and a complaint that Donald Trump can't be elected because he will quote unquote weaponize the Department of Justice. So this is a tweet from Kamala Harris at 1:32 p.m. today. If reelected, Trump has openly said he intends to weaponize the Department of Justice against his enemies. He openly talks about his administration for dictators and is vowed to be a dictator on day one. It's on us to recognize the threat he poses. The choice is clear this November. Mark, we all know Joe Biden's DOJ has launched 4 criminal indictments and 91 felony counts against Trump. For what? We don't know. We'll get into those in the next few episodes, believe me. But they always accuse the other side of what they're doing, I guess. It's pretty much been established that this Joe Biden versus Donald Trump rematch is the, quote, loser goes to jail election. But these people this tone deaf where they don't realize what they're saying, Mark, and how it sounds whenever it's on TV every day that Trump's under indictment for 4 different counts and all kind of ridiculous things?
Yeah, this is a loser leaves town matchup, Joe. Luckily, I was drinking my water during the commercial break and not while you read that tweet from Kathleen Kamala, because I would have spit it out. I was almost laughing. But no, they don't understand, Joe. I mean, it's clear. You know, let's look at what Hillary Clinton stated on Jimmy Fallon. I believe this was earlier this week. She said, one is old and effective and compassionate, has a heart and really cares about people, and one is old and has been charged with 91 felonies. She goes on to say, I don't understand why this is even a hard choice, really. I don't understand it. But we have to go through the election. Hopefully people will realize what's at stake, because it's an existential question. What kind of country we're going to have? What kind of democracy we can have? And people who blow that off are not paying attention, because it's not like Trump, his enablers, his empowerers, his allies are not telling us what they want to do. I mean, they're pretty clear about what kind of country they want. Yeah, so go out there and vote. Oh, we are. Oh, we are, Hillary, Madam Secretary. But it's still, after all these years, Joe, she is still completely clueless when it comes to what the people in this country want. And to say, for Kathleen Kamala to say that Trump is going to weaponize the DOJ is insane. That's an insane quote. You know, we've litigated it over and over again on our first 99 episodes, but here we are on episode 100. We're going to see what happens here on next trial begins.
And I believe April 15th is the date when Trump is in court next. Or is that when the trial starts? I think the trial starts on April 15th, the New York City one with Alvin Bragg. Yeah, it's.
I believe so. Yeah, one of these next two are coming up.
They try to get it pushed back, but nope. And some of these cases, let's just go over a few of the points. The one, he's accused of raping E. Jean Carroll. Let's look at the facts. The judge would not allow evidence to be introduced. The dress that she claims he raped her in didn't come out until about 7 years. The design, I don't know fashion that well, didn't come out until about 7 years after the supposed rape. She couldn't remember the day. She couldn't remember where. You figured with Donald Trump in there late at night at a department store, there would be cameras. There'd be someone there with him. But nope. And he has to pay, what was the original thing? For $500 million? Like this Dr. Evil figures over here.
The E. Jean Carroll case was, I think he owed her close to like $90 million.
What was the one for the $500 million? The $500 million was Letitia James.
That was the Mar-a-Lago real estate fraud. I'll use air quotes on that. $475 million fine, roughly.
Oh yeah, Mar-a-Lago is only worth about $100 or something. They said.
Yeah, $18 million.
These are going to be fun times. The number to call in.
The mainstream media said he should sell Mar-a-Lago and get $200 million for it.
Well, what happens if
sign off?
What happens if he does sell Mar-a-Lago and gets $200 million for it? Kind of the whole narrative that the judge had gets thrown out. Does that person get arrested immediately for financial fraud? I don't know how it works.
Yeah. Well, apparently the judge in the Stormy Daniels case, I believe, Juan Merchan, I believe his name is. I think his daughter is tied into the Democratic Party or Hillary Clinton or something like that, where there is a complete conflict of interest with this guy. A shocker. It's in New York City. And I know Trump, I think he's instated a gag order on Trump, and he's not allowed to speak about the judge or this trial at all. And I think Trump has asked the judge to recuse himself, but we know that there's a better chance of seeing Christ than that happening.
Isn't it amazing in America that the mainstream media who hates Trump, CNN, MSNBC, even some people on Fox News, they could talk about this trial and they could talk about Donald Trump and paint the narrative however they want and be fine to Donald Trump, the guy whose freedom is at stake for the rest of his life and his financial freedom, everything, he can't say a word. He has to sit there in silence and can't defend himself. While there's an election going on, while the 2024 election is in full swing here, full swing, does that make any sense to you? Does that sound like a free country? Does that sound like Russia that we're told about? Or does that sound like the United States?
Election interference.
Do you remember when I came up with the crazy conspiracy theory that what if Michael Cohen was actually the one having the affair with Stormy Daniels?
You did, and you were right about that.
Well, we don't know if I was right yet, but this is from Gateway Pundit last week. Whistleblower claims that Michael Avenatti reported, that was the old lawyer, reportedly revealed that Michael Cohen was having an affair with Stormy Daniels since 2006, and he cooked up the hush money scheme to extort Trump before the 2016 election. That's something that we're going to have to break apart in another episode. But how funny would that be if this whole time Trump didn't have the affair? Because Stormy Daniels did come out in a statement and said she did never have an affair or have relations with Donald Trump, I believe. Fact check me on that. But how funny would that be? This would nuke another mainstream media narrative that's been in effect since 2015, 16. They have no credibility. If Michael Cohen was having the affair, they have no credibility. Okay, we have about 5.
How does that come out?
Good.
How does that come out in trial, though, Joe?
I don't know. I have no idea. We'll find out. It'll be fun to watch. These trials that are coming up with Trump are going to be the trials of the century. Maybe we'll finally get, if the Georgia case ever went, maybe we will get to see some evidence of voter fraud, since every other case in 2020 and 2021 was dismissed on standing. But
I think Nathan Wade, speaking of beautiful Fani Willis down there in Atlanta, I think Nathan Wade is being held in contempt of court.
Like he should be. I mean,
his divorce proceeding from his wife, I believe.
They lie. They got on the stand. This is a DA and a lawyer. And they got on stand and asked so many questions about their vacations and where they got the money and how they paid. And I've never seen so many people pay in cash. It's unbelievable. I mean, imagine going somewhere and paying cash for, how do you pay cash for an airplane ticket? I mean, she bought it on a credit card and then she gives it back to Nathan Wade cash? Where's she getting the cash? She told, the story was she likes to keep 6 months cash in her house. Listeners, can you do that? Can you do that? Are you able to do that in this Joe Biden economy? No, because she knows she can't get caught. Because if she gets caught, she probably goes to jail, loses her law license at minimum, and this whole Donald Trump Georgia case goes bye-byes.
And she also admitted that she took money from her campaign fund.
Yeah, that was...
And used it as cash in her, where she lays her head.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
Amazing.
All right, do you want to try to take one caller or two callers if we have time? The number again is 724-774-1888, a.k.a. what Chris Christie does all day long, or 724-843-1888. Call in now. We're looking to take a few calls. Is it blank? Our producer's over here just drinking Pepto-Bismol the whole episode saying, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into?
Well, while we're waiting for a caller, if we do get a caller, Joe, let's talk about the next pandemic that's possibly underway here in Texas, Joe. The largest U.S. fresh egg producer halts production at Texas plant after bird flu found in chickens. About 1.6 million laying hens and 337 pallets were called.
So this is the next pandemic for sure? Well,
apparently it jumped to an animal, jumped to a cat, and someone, I think a human, caught it as well. So it's mutating quickly. And apparently they said it's going to be 100 times worse than COVID.
Let me know when it jumps to a pangolin again. Or what was the other one? A raccoon dog?
Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap up here. Do you want to drop for the audience our show name, where to find us? Because now that we're on 99.3 WBVP, we have 99 other episodes, you could go back and listen to until we're back here next Monday, the Eclipse Day, from 5 to 6. But go ahead and give us our...
Yes, we'll be back Monday. Total Eclipse of the Heart. We will be here at 5 o'clock next Monday. The eclipse will be, I think, around 3:15, peaking-ish. But we are on Apple Podcasts, Thinking Logically. We are on Spotify under the same name. If you want to reach us, we are Thinking Logically Podcast, gmail.com. We also have a Rumble channel where you can find our exclusive interview with the QAnon John and Jacob Buckley. And look for us on Rumble there under Thinking Logically Podcast, I believe it is. And that's where you can find us. So, Joe, great first episode here on terrestrial radio. It has been an honor to be with you here finally after, going on 2 years on the podcast. And it's been great. So good episode, Joe. Great job.
Great episode. And for those of you that want to email us and get into contact before, again, thinkinglogicallypodcast@gmail.com. Guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here listening to us. We appreciate that.
You're listening to 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls.